Well, hi. This morning's sermon comes to us from Karishma, or Carrie Gottfried, originally delivered at her home church, the UU Fellowship of Corvallis, Oregon. She is currently studying religion at Wellesley College outside of Boston. I believe she was 19 years old when she wrote this. It is called The 5 Jagged Rocks of Unitarian Universalism. In the Bible, there's a pretty well-known story about David and Goliath. Goliath, a huge warrior from the side of the Philistines, challenged someone from the side of the Israelites to battle. David was chosen, and he knew that even with all of the armor in the world, he would not be able to win against Goliath by strength alone. So, he took his staff, he picked up 5 smooth stones, put them in his bag along with a sling. And as he approached Goliath, David took the stones and slung them at Goliath, striking him on the forehead and knocking him over. Now, Unitarian Universalists, we rely heavily on the teachings of our parent traditions, Judaism and Christianity, interpreting their stories through an open-minded perspective, seeking universal meaning in those ancient texts. In the centuries in which our faith has expanded outside the boundaries of traditional Judeo-Christianity, we've also expanded what we draw our inspiration from. Universalism is now sometimes interpreted to mean that we draw a universal meaning from all religious traditions. As Reverend Leslie Takahashi says, they teach us to believe in the teachings of Jesus or Buddha. They teach us to believe in human potential or the power beyond a single will. Because life embraces multiple truths and speaks of both and. We draw many of our rituals from paganism, focusing on how to embody our faith, live fully as ourselves, as our best selves, and respect the earth and her people. Buddhism teaches us to be mindful, disciplined, and present in the moment, focusing on our actions and intentions to make the world better. Feminist and liberation theologies from various religious traditions remind us that we are a prophetic faith. We are not complacent in the face of change, but rather pushing forward beyond our comfort to challenge the status quo and our role in oppression. But what about Unitarian Universalism? What did we believe? A connection we miss a lot of the time when we draw from other religions is how those truths connect to our truths. So, how can the story of David and Goliath, a story from one of our many sacred texts, be interpreted in Unitarian Universalism? James Luther Adams, a Unitarian minister and a 20th century theologian, used the story of David and Goliath and the 5 smooth stones that David carried to articulate 5 smooth stones of the liberal religious tradition. The beliefs about what it means to practice faith in a responsible, progressive way. Because although as far as religion goes, we are for sure in the minority, but we can still have a big impact on the world. But UUism isn't the only liberal religion, and many beliefs that we hold are held by many. Where does our theology lie? What can we point to when asked not only what we believe, but what is the bedrock of our faith? As the title of this sermon suggests, there are some rocks that we can base our faith on. The 5 jagged rocks are an adaptation of James Luther Adams' smooth stones, and they were created by Reverends Nancy Bowen and Mike Moran, who wanted something that could build on our 7 principles focus even more on a declaration of our faith. Instead of the smooth stones created by atoms, they chose, according to Reverend Gretchen Haley, to recognize the faith that is dangerous and not always smooth going. So our stones are jagged because we aren't perfect, theologically or otherwise. We're rough around the edges, but that doesn't make us less valid. The first of the 5 jagged rocks, although there isn't necessarily a specified order, is the belief that there is a unity that makes us one. Simply put, we believe that everything is connected. This rock gives us freedom to express our theology. Some might call that connection God, or the spirit of life, or the mystery of the universe. As our 4th principle guides us to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, our 3rd principle reminds us that all of our faith discoveries are aided by acceptance of one another and encouragement for spiritual growth. The second jagged rock is that all souls are sacred and worthy. This is reflective of our first principle, the affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But it focuses more on each something greater than simply intrinsic ethical goodness. You may have heard Thomas Starr King's well-known quip, Universalists believe that God is too good to damn people. Unitarians believe they are too good to be damned. Now this rock signals that our sacredness and worth are tied to something greater than each individual. We don't focus on whether someone is damned or divine, because it doesn't matter where they're going. It matters that they're here. When we talk about all souls being sacred and worthy, it's a truly radical statement. When we proclaim that people are sacred just for being alive, when we don't focus on the color of their skin or their immigration status, we don't think about who they love or who they are or how they move, just state that they're sacred and worthy, we are living into our theology as Unitarian Universalists. The third jagged rock, courageous love transforms the world. It's deeper and wider than just love. When the Beatles say all you need is love, they're talking about courageous love. UUs do their very best to side with love, and that's what makes all the difference. Even though we've fallen short many times, we Unitarian Universalists keep trying. We get up again and again on the side of love. We are a justice-seeking faith, always reaching for that beloved community. How do we create beloved community? With love, with courageous love, not love for oppression or hatred, because as much as we have to realize that all souls are sacred and worthy, it's hard to think about that when they refuse to recognize the sacred and worthiness of my soul or yours. It's much more important to focus on loving each other, loving the promise of our shared liberation, because that's what's going to transform the world. The fourth rock is the knowledge that truth continues to be revealed. Our revelation is not sealed. What we believe as a faith community has changed throughout history and will continue to change. Ours is one of the most transformative faiths, because instead of being defined by one set creed, we are defined by how we choose to be in covenant with each other. And that covenant can change, and will change, and has changed over time. Our principles, one of the most formative parts of Unitarian Universalism, were only adopted in 1960. In fact, the seventh principle about the interdependent web of existence was only adopted in 1985. And science, one of our 6 sources, teaches us that we always have more to learn about life, about the universe and ourselves. As a species, we are always discovering, always adjusting our hypotheses and changing our realities. That's true for what we know of ourselves and the world, so why should it not be true about our faith? Freedom and tolerance have been central to our tradition, at least since the Reformation. But we can wonder if the famous Unitarians and Universalists we claim as our ancestors would claim us too. If they made it through one of our services, they would certainly be shocked to learn at coffee hour that a solid proportion of its congregants don't even believe in God. But so is the journey of our faith, ever-changing, ever-growing. As Universalist Edwin Markham once wrote, "He drew a circle to shut me out, heretic rebel, a thing to flout, but I had love and the wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in." As the Unitarian and Universalist merger showed us, our faith and its beliefs are appealing to many if we can keep growing our circle, catching those at the margins, and holding them close, revealing truth as we discover it. Our love and our faith can only get stronger. Salvation in this life. This comes from our Universalist roots, and it might be the most radical, jagged rock of them all. While most other faiths believe in an afterlife, as Unitarian Universalists, as a whole, we understand that no one belief is guaranteed to be true. Each person can still have their own truth, but what's more important to us than what happens after we die is how we live. Maybe we go to heaven. Maybe we're reborn. Maybe we cease to exist. Maybe our fate is predetermined, or maybe our actions add up to determine whether we make it into the good place. But what can we do now? What can we do to make the world a better place? Not because of some future reward, but because our lives now depend on it. Because our liberation is tied up in each other's, because we are connected, and when one of us is in pain, we are all in pain, because none of us are free until all of us are free. There is no salvation for us in this life unless it is for all of us. We have to gather that light together. That is the promise of beloved community. In 1790, when the Universalist Convention in Philadelphia adopted an anti-slavery resolution proposed by Benjamin Rush, who signed the Declaration of Independence, they were fighting for salvation in this life. When American Unitarians traveled to Europe and risked their lives to help Jews and other refugees escape the Nazis, they were fighting for salvation in this life. When Reverend James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo were killed in Selma, after traveling there for the civil rights movement, they were fighting for salvation in this life. And today, as Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country vote to provide sanctuary for undocumented immigrants, as UUs travel to the southern border to protest and bear witness, as we proclaim that no one can be illegal on stolen land, we are fighting for salvation in this life. Reverend Sophia Betancourt reminds us, quote, "We are in control of what we do in our daily living. If we, each one of us, represent a missing remnant in the fabric of our collective future, then together we can lean into a possibility that we have yet to fully experience in human history, a collective wholeness, an unassailable good. So immerse yourself unapologetically in what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist in these days. And then go out in the world and live knowing that your faith matters. Unquote. There have been many, many times in our history and today where we have not done the right thing, where we have forgotten about what we are all working towards. But Unitarian minister Theodore Parker said it best, I think, when he said, look at the facts of the world. You see a continual and progressive triumph of right. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. But from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. And it bends that way because there are people bending it, who are bending it towards justice because it is our duty to help heal the world, to fight for salvation in this life. We are a community of thinkers and seekers. We are heretics, the word coming from the Greek, to choose. We have chosen how we want to be in relationship with each other, what we draw our wisdom from, and what we believe through our 7 principles, our 6 sources, and now our 5 jagged rocks. We are a radical, liberal, and theologically rich faith. And like David with his smooth stones, bending his sling towards Goliath, we will use our jagged rocks to bend the arc of the universe towards justice. Carrie Gottfried.